This video is going to demonstrate the 3 safe firearm handling rules. We're going to outline the rules, explain why they are the rules, and we're going to demonstrate them on 2 different types of firearms. We're also going to be demonstrating how to properly grip, maintain control of, load and unload 2 common types of pistols while on the range. The 2 pistols that we'll be using to demonstrate are this is a typical slide action magazine loading pistol. And we're going to be using a revolver to show you how to properly load and unload that. The grips here are missing simply because they were damaged and I'm waiting for a replacement. Now, the first rule of safe gun handling is to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Now here in this apartment we have neighbors down below us, neighbors behind that wall, and neighbors in your direction. So obviously none of those are safe directions. We're on the 3rd floor. The roof above my head is about the safest direction that we possibly have. This wall in this direction over here goes to the outside, and that is going to be my established safe direction when I am gripping the pistol in my hand and I'm demonstrating how to properly approach and engage the target. So the first rule of firearm safety being muzzle in a safe direction. You have to define what that safe direction is in the same way that I just did, by taking a conscious outline of what is to the left, right, behind, everything around me. I have to have situational awareness. When I'm on the firing range, imagining that the camera in this direction is going to be the student that I'm instructing, or another shooter in the lane over next to me. And then behind this wall is simply a partition dividing my booth or my lane and the booth or lane and the shooter next to me. Obviously, the safe direction is not going to be muzzle pointing to the left or to the right. Safe direction is not going to be pointing the muzzle back behind me in the direction of the control booth or the check-in window, where people are working, where people are coming in or out of the range. Okay? So you have to establish a safe muzzle direction while on the firing line. And really, the only safe directions are going to be straight down at the ground, straight up at the ceiling, or downrange. And so for purposes of this video, this direction is going to be downrange. The second rule of firearms safety is to keep the finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Indeed, that actually means completely out of the trigger guard. Okay. The trigger is the operating point of a firearm. And the only time where your finger should be on the trigger is when you have made a conscious and aware decision that you have a target in front of you that you want to destroy. Unless that decision has been made, your trigger finger should not go on the trigger. Breaking that second rule is by far the most common reason for errant or unintended negligent discharges. That's how people accidentally shoot themselves in the leg, shoot themselves in the foot, or worse. So make sure to keep the finger completely off the trigger until ready to use it. When you're gripping the firearm, a way that you can do that is to park the trigger finger right up along on top of the trigger housing. That works with slide action pistols. It will also work with a revolver. And indeed, it's going to work with any type of firearm. Maybe with the exception of a minuscule Derringer or pocket pistol. You're going to be able to safely park your finger alongside of that trigger housing without putting your finger on the trigger. Don't let it go on the trigger until you've identified your target, what's behind it, and you're ready to take the shot. And then finally, the third rule of safe firearm handling is to keep the firearm unloaded until you're ready to use it. Now, the when are you ready to use it? Well, obviously when you're on the range and you're safely on the firing line, the range is in commence fire, and you've identified your target and what's behind it, then you're ready to use your firearm. Don't load the firearm until that point has arrived. To demonstrate the proper loading procedures for typical slide action pistol and the revolver that we have down there, you have to verify that this is an unloaded magazine and an unloaded pistol. Keeping the muzzle pointed straight up or downrange only. Take the magazine, insert it into the pistol, close the action, and now we'll begin to demonstrate proper grip technique on both of these pistols. For the slide action pistol, I'm going to demonstrate a very easy to use, effective, and common grip style. First and most important point is to take the web of your hand, that's the part between your forefingers and your thumb, and place it all the way up onto this part of the pistol here, which is called the beaver tail. Place the web of your hand fully seated into that beaver tail. Don't let it ride down low like this. Fully seated under the beaver tail. With your support hand, take 4 index fingers and wrap them around the 3 index fingers that are gripping the pistol. Take your thumbs, park your support thumb under the dominant thumb, and place them pointed forward alongside underneath the slide of the pistol. Fully extend your arms, locking your elbows, and pressing the pistol downrange towards the target. Aim downrange and take your shot. Properly unload this pistol if you didn't unload it by shooting it until it was dry. Remove the magazine, slide the action back, lock it open, and place it safely in the pistol rack, or keeping it pointed downrange, place it on the table in front of you. To load and unload in your revolver, you will have the cylinder open thusly, keeping the muzzle pointed downrange. Load your cartridges into the cylinder. Close the action when you're ready to take your shot. And to properly grip a revolver like this is going to be a little different. Some shooters like to wrap their thumbs one on top of the other in several different ways. With this particular pistol, I like to have my thumbs forward, just like on a slide action pistol. However, that can be a problem if you have a smaller frame revolver. The problem lies right there. In front of the cylinder, and between it and the forcing cone is what's called the cylinder gap. Outside of that cylinder gap will be very hot gases and small particles flying out very, very high speeds when the gun is fired. Having any part of your hand or fingers in front of that cylinder when this firearm discharges is very, very dangerous. It's very likely that you will either burn your hand, or it's possible that you could lose a digit if you have a large enough cartridge shooting out of your gun. So you need to make sure that the grip that you are using does not place any part of your hand in front of that cylinder. To unload the revolver, keeping the muzzle pointed downrange, release the cylinder, tip it up so that the rounds fall out of the cylinder, and place the firearm either muzzle up in the proper gun rack or place it muzzle downrange, sitting on the table. Now, one thing that I demonstrated about the proper grip on a revolver does not apply to a slide action pistol, which is wrapping your thumbs around when you're gripping the pistol. As you can see, this is the halfway point in the action of a slide action pistol. This is what the gun is doing, with the slide moving backwards in this direction when the round goes off. If you were to have your thumbs wrapped around the backside of this pistol, you're going to end up with, by far and wide, the most common injury on a firing line, which is a bleeding or broken thumb. Okay? The reason you cannot safely wrap your thumb around the back of this pistol is because the action is going to come back, and with your thumb there in the way, it's going to cause a certain degree of injury. So you need to make sure to use the proper grip on a slide action pistol. So again, the 3 rules of firearm safety is to keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. You have to establish what that safe direction is every time that you handle a firearm. Safe direction is always going to be changing. You have to have conscious awareness of everything going on around you, including on a firing line. Second rule, it's equally as important as the first, is to keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. You are only ready to shoot when you have identified your target, identified what's behind it, and you have made a conscious decision to take the shot. And then finally, the third rule of firearm safety is to keep the gun unloaded